All right, what's up, my friends? Welcome to the Lost Caverns of Ixalan complete set review. That's what's up. Every card, constructed, limited, giving out the awards you know and love. And we got a lot to do, folks. We do white, we do blue. There's a lot of words in this set. And, whoo, boy. I want to remind you, of course, about 10 new brews coming up next week, Thursday, the 9th. I'll be on the early access stream, building my usual 10 new decks in standard with the new set. Gonna be a lot of fun. You can see all these cards in action. Should be really, really cool. I love the article on that as well as always. Also remind you all watching on YouTube, take a second, hit the like button. There's a lot of work goes into these set reviews. If you enjoy it and you want to see more of it, please take a half second, like the video, and interact. Make YouTube happy for me. Please just take a second. I love y'all. Thanks so much. It's black time, folks. Let's rock and roll. We get into our third color here. Starting off with Abyssal Gore Stalker. 6 mana for a 6/6 horror uncommon. Nice simple card here. 3 lines text. When it ETBs, each player sacrifices 2 creatures. Card's kind of cool. You know, it's a card that plays well if you have a lot of stuff in play. So if I have a lot of croppers in play, I can sacrifice. It's really, really cool. You know, bat tokens or whatever else it might be. If your opponent has 2 things to play, it can be a blowout. If they have, you know, a bunch of small things to play, it's not necessarily so good. It's also a 6/6 though, so like you're getting a decent rate also. Kind of a cool card. Probably a good curve topper for your draft deck if you're kind of doing that sort of thing. But not a card every deck wants. So probably just, you know, a decent limited card overall. Pretty creepy, pretty big. Fleshbag Marauder, what's up?
Where are we?
It's Batman. I'm not going to try and say it. The Deepest Betrayal. This is the Black God. 5 mana for a 4/4 flying lifelink mythic. This is the black version of the god. Not sure why this card's a bat god. The rest are all regular gods, I think, but whatever. No. And all the gods are basically just creatures. When they die, turn into a land. This is a 4/4 flying lifelink. Whenever it attacks, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, make it bat. And whenever it dies, you flip it into the Temple of the Dead. Taps are black. Pay 3 mana and transform this. Activate only if a player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, only as a sorcery. So this one, unlike the white one, is actually very easy to transform back. So at the stage in the game where you're going to activate Temple of the Dead, either you or your opponent will probably be hellbent or close to it. Meaning it's pretty easy to flip this card back, right? So we have kind of like a 4/4 flying lifelink. It dies, turns into a land. You can get it back in a turn or 2. And then if it lives, you have to attack and maybe draw cards, make them discard cards, get a little extra value also. The problem here is a few folds. One is that this is a 4/4 for 5 that mostly must attack to get value. It's not really that big. It's only a 4/4. And then there's a lot of exile removal in the format. Like a lot. So there's going to be a lot of different ways to get this thing gone forever. And even then, if you just kill it, like, you know, I got to kill it to mana to get it back. It's also going to come back tapped because it just transforms back. It's already tapped, so it can't block either. That being said, I think this card's probably not good enough for constructed. It just doesn't really... It's got some good lines on it, but for the most part, maybe if it costs 4 mana, it was like a 3/4 for 4 or something like that. But overall, just a kind of expensive, clunky card for constructed. Absolute slam dunk, bomb rare and limited. Just like windmill slam, doing backflip. But for constructed, I just don't think it's going to make it, honestly. Good bomb card. Pretty fun card, but overall, Acolyte of that. 3 mana for a 1/4 common vampire cleric. Tap it, sack a creature or artifact. Each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1. So a little bit of sack value here. As we've seen in the prior colors, a lot of these spells in this set are artifacts with ETBs for a various number of reasons, and this will do that as well. Just a kind of like a mid-level common, though, honestly. You know, it can give you a little bit of reach, obviously. Decent blocker. You go to kill your thing, you sack it. Drain here or there, sure. But mostly just limited filler. Another chance. 3 mana for a instant. This is a common. You may mill 2. Then return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. This is your average return 2 creature for 3. Kind of double raise dead. Also kind of middling, you know, not so great. It's okay. It's fine. Nothing incredible, just an okay common. Card advantage for a slower deck. Bitter Triumph, 2 mana for an instant. As initial cost to play the spell, discard a card or pay 3 life. destroy target creature or planeswalker. So we have kind of an Infernal Grasp-esque card here, right? Now, Infernal Grasp is a card I think is fairly overrated. It sees very little play, honestly, despite being legal in most things and being able to kill most things. 2 life is a lot. 3 life is even more, right? So, realistically, I don't think this is a card you just put in your deck. I think this card is specifically a card you want to play as sort of like a Bone Shards, kind of card for your Greasefang deck or your Graveyard deck or your Reanimator deck or whatever it might be, as a way to kill a creature and also discard cards like Lightning Axe kind of thing. Killing Planeswalkers is not particularly valuable in Standard. There aren't that many good Planeswalkers. In older formats, it's pretty good, which is reasonable. And then in older formats, it's also easier to gain value off of discarding a card. So I think in Standard, this card mostly won't see much play. Folks don't realize that Infernal Grasp is still legal in Standard. It just doesn't see play. It's just not a very good card. And I think this card, you mostly need to leverage the discard to make it worthwhile. However, if you are leveraging a discard, this card is fantastic. Very, very flexible, very, very cheap. Be able to kill Planeswalkers is great also. But yeah, this card is not as good as it looks. Close to a trap card, but not quite. People will overvalue this card for sure at the start. But yeah, mostly just like a Lightning Axe, Bone Shards kind of card, and not much more than that. Speaking of trap cards, the Bloodletter of, let's try and say it, Aklazat. I don't know. This card, trap card.
It's a trap.
This card's got all the hallmarks of a good trap card. All right, it's a mythic. It's got black, black, black in it. It doubles things. It has no ability when it ETBs. Doesn't really affect the board that much. Requires other cards to be good. This card's a huge trap, folks. So it's 2/4 flyer for 4. It has 3 black pips, which is cute for devotion, obviously. If an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice that much life instead. All right, so in some ways similar to Torbrand in red, right? Where Torbrand, kind of doubles the damage. Although Torbrand added 2 damage to it, so all of your 1 damage effects got tripled, which is definitely a different thing. The problem is that obviously red is better at dealing damage than black is directly. Cards like, Kamano Faces Whatever, Goblin Chain Whirler, etc., etc. This lacks a lot of that. And the real problem here is that this card does nothing by itself. It's 2/4. It's basically we'll say it's a 4/4 flyer for 4, and that's just not good enough. If you don't have a board in play, you aren't attacking. It doesn't do anything. It's a bad flyer. So you have to have a board that can already attack in play, and it's a creature augmentation card that doesn't actually augment your creatures. So you have. It's not helping you push your creatures through or making them bigger or harder to kill. It just, if they do get through, you get a bonus. So I think this card's pretty bad overall. Big, huge trap card. I think everyone's going to love this card at first, and then they're going to play it and find out the card's really, really bad. That being said, I'm sure I'll play a deck at some point in Historic with 4 of these and 4 Grey Merchant of Asphodels or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, this card's kind of pretty unexciting trap card. Great and limited, obviously, because it's just a big flyer, but for the most part, not very exciting. Bloodthorn Flail. 1 black equipment. +2/+1 for the creature. Equip either 3 or discard a card. I actually really like this card. In the context of if Madness comes back or some sort of really, really beneficial thing for discarding cards. This card's cheap and pretty cool. Imagine playing this card and discarding a Fiery Temper, and pumping your creature. That's pretty awesome. Well, I guess Madness isn't Standard right now, right? But good Madness card. Is Madness in Standard right now? Standard's so big, I don't even know. It's not. It wasn't in the most recent Innistrad set. There are Innistrad sets. It was not in them, though, so I apologize. But yeah. So imagine in older formats, it's just a 1-mana discard outlet. If you're just playing some sort of Madness deck, that's pretty sweet. So kind of it might be a cool store card, honestly. But yeah, I think for the most part, probably not going to get there. It's honestly similar to the Removal Spell, where you have to be getting good value off the discard here. If you are, this is an enabler, not a drawback. It's great. Otherwise, pretty unexciting. But yeah, otherwise, Bringer of the Last Gift. We have a Honking Chunking 8-mana card.
Oh my.
This is a rare 6/6 flyer. Whenever it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, each player sacrifices all other creatures they control. Then each player returns all creature cards from the graveyard that weren't put there this way to the battlefield. It's kind of like a living death for 8 mana. You must cast it also. Yeah, definitely more of a commander card. This is not really a card for constructed. Pretty cool, but yeah, 8 mana is a ton. Cavern of Souls will be in the format, so you could, in theory, like, guarantee it resolves, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, this card's like just a silly commander card. Very, very old school Magic card, right? Just like some big 8-drop with a huge effect. It's totally unplayable. It's like very, very like classic junk rare kind of card. But yeah, in limited, if you can cast it, go nuts. But 8's a lot. Blood Rage Mycoid. We have a 4-mana 4/3. Beneath your end step, if you descended this turn, as a reminder, descended means that you have seen a permanent card go to your graveyard during this turn. Make a 1/1 black fungus token with this creature can't block. This is a common. If this was like a 3-mana card, like a 3/3 for 3 or something like that, it'd be a pretty good uncommon, I think. But as far as commons and limited goes, this card's pretty reasonable. Most of the time you play this, you'll be able to get descended before you play it. Tag with a thing, they trade, you play this, make a token. That being said, a 1/1 token that can't block is only okay. It's not great. So I think this card's very middling. Just like a middling 4-mana filler creature for limited and nothing more. Cool art though. Canonized in Blood. 2 mana for an enchantment. And if your end step, if you descended this turn, put a +1 counter on a creature you control. Pay 7 and sack this. Make a 4/3 white-black vampire demon creature token with flying. This is like your classic limited trap card. You even if you trigger this every single turn, it's still like, if you can mill cards to descend, it's a permanent card from anywhere. But that being said, it's just like you play this, nothing happens, and then you play a mill card and get 1 counter maybe, and then like you're just not really getting enough off this. And then 7 mana to sack, make it a 4/3 flyer is also not great either. This is your classic like trap card in limited, not very good. A Chupacabra Echo. 4 mana for a 3/2 with Fathomless Descent. And once again, Descent is 3 different abilities. This one counts the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Whenever Chupacabra Echo enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -X till end of turn, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Obviously a great limited card, right? It's just like a, FTK, play it, kill a creature, yada, yada, yada. Constructed, gonna be a lot harder to get enough things in your graveyard to actually kill the bigger things. You would need 5 permanent cards in your graveyard to kill a Shieldred, which is a huge deal. Whereas Ravage Chupacabra was like reasonable enough. So this card's a great draft card, not really playable constructed. If it was like a 3/3 or a 3/4 maybe, but like even then, not so great. So good draft card, not much else. Corpses of the Lost. We've got, it's creepy. The mana for enchantment. Skeletons you control get +1/+0 and have haste. When Corpses of the Lost ETBs, make a 2/2 black skeleton pirate creature token. Beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, again, a permanent card hits the battlefield, not token. You can pay 1 life. If you do, return it to your hand. You can obviously cast it again and keep playing it over and over again. I wish I had the ability to do a skeleton check on standard and see how many skeletons there were, because there probably ain't many. That being said, this is a recursive, in some ways, 3/2 haste for 3. Is that good enough for constructed? Probably not. But it's a cool card nonetheless, and it could be a fun card where if you're going to play at some older format skeletons or whatever, kind of cool, or changelings. Definitely a cool card in that respect, but more like a fun build around than anything else. And then in constructed, it's not really going to be a thing for standard or whatever. But for a limited card, it's very, very good. A 3/2 haste for 3 is already good enough. And then obviously you can capably play this over and over again. This is a great limited card. For constructed, more of like an against the odds, kind of like fun build around, but nothing else. Deadweight returns. This card's great. We've seen it 1,000 times. Very good in a set with Descended. Very good in a set with Descend. Card's great. Deathcap Marionette. 2 mana for a 1/1 Death Touch when EDB's mill 2. Very good enabler here, honestly. These 1/1 Death Touchers in limited are usually pretty good. Mill 2 is great. Obviously, you block with it, put it in your graveyard also, so it's good to have it turn on your Descend cards. Just a good draft coming. Nothing crazy. Just good. It's a good one. Deep Goblin Skull Taker. Man, really metal card names. 3 mana for a 2/2 Menace. It's a common. Beginning of your end step, if you descend this turn, put a counter on it. Card's pretty good. Won't be too hard to like play this and trigger it immediately, making it a 3/3, and then it'll keep growing also, which is nice too. So this card's nice. Card's pretty good. The floor is 2/2 menace for 3, which is like fine, but won't be hard to make this card to a 3/3 or 4/4 as the game goes on. So yeah, it's a good solid draft common. Nothing crazy. Deep Cavern Bat. We got an uncommon here. 2 mana for a 1/1 flying lifelink bat. When it ATBs, look at our opponent's hand to exile a non-land card from it until it leaves the battlefield. So we have Kitesail Freebooter is back, and was Freebooter only non-creature non-land? Or was it creatures too? I don't remember. But either way, Brain Maggot kind of effect is pretty cool. The body's pretty good as a 1/1 flying lifelinker, so chips in some damage. If you can pump it, that'd be awesome. Also, that being said, not a relevant creature type as a bat. So if it was a human or a pirate or something like that, it'd be a lot better maybe. But still a fine card. Could definitely see play. I think we've gone a little bit, past the point power creep wise of like Brain Maggot cards being good. But it's certainly a reasonable version of that, which is nice. So, and Deep Fossilize, 5 mana for a sorcery, reanimates a creature, and then it explores twice, which is kind of cool, honestly. So, 5 mana reanimate, pretty easy to cast. Obviously, in Constructed, there are just better reanimates. Cruelty of Gix comes to mind. It'd be hard to imagine ever playing a card like this over Cruelty of Gix. But pretty cool upside, honestly, exploring twice. Some value. In Limited, if you're self-milling, kind of a cool card also to have access to. So, pretty fun limited card. And then Constructed, probably not. But, maybe if you're desperate for a reanimation spell. Echo of Dusk is a 2 mana creature vampire spirit. It's a 2/2 common. Has Descend 4. As long as there are 4 more permanent cards in your graveyard, it gets +1 on lifelink. This card's excellent. This one's really, really good. So we've got a bear, which is fun. And then if at any point you're descended in the mid-game, 3/3 lifelink for 2 is obviously phenomenal. So it scales up very well as the game goes on. Also, I think this card's great. Really, really good draft common. Like it a lot. Descend 4 is not too bad if you're building your deck right. There's a lot of self-mill in blue and black. Like that card a lot. Fanatical Offering, 2 mana for an instant. Not quite Deadly Dispute, but additional cost to cast a creature, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw 2 and make a map token. So not a treasure, making a map. I think a map is going to be worse than a treasure in Constructed, but possibly better in Limited, honestly, because it has more value and you don't really need the mana that much. So that makes this card probably not quite there in Constructed, but in Limited, this card's going to be excellent. It's going to be really, really good. Sacking artifact creature should be pretty easy. Get some value, yada, yada, yada. So, card suite. Definitely a cool one. Fungal Fortitude. 2 mana for a flash enchantment aura. Creature gets +2/+0. And when it dies, it comes back tapped under its owner's control. Kind of cute. Obviously, a way to trigger Descend and Descend in your graveyard over threshold. Decent trick. Pretty similar to kind of cards we usually see. The good thing here is that it pumps power. So, this is a way you can trade up in combat and keep your creature, which is kind of cool too. So I think this card's going to play better than your average, not already dead or whatever those cards are, being that it's kind of like a trade up as well. So kind of cool. Pretty cool art too, honestly. Kind of a weird, creepy art. Gargantuan Leech. I'm pretty high on caves, folks. There are a lot of different caves we'll get to in the land section. The long and short TLDR is that there is a land slot in packs that will 70% of the time be a cave land. And there's a lot of different caves at common and uncommon that are pretty sweet. And there are a lot of cards that care about caves. And this one's really good. This is just affinity for caves you control or caves in your graveyard. It is a 5/5 lifelinker. If you can get this thing to cost 5 mana or less, this card is, it's an uncommon. Fuck it. Hi, I'm Jim. Welcome to my set review. You knew it was going to happen, right? You knew it was going to happen. The set symbols are impossible to decipher. Shit. All right, whatever. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it in protest of the set symbol being absolutely heinous. Card's still great, though. But, Bomb Uncommon. Yeah, we'll just slur the speech a little bit. So I'm going to leave it. Whatever. Card's really, really good regardless. If you get this card to cost 5 or less, card's awesome. I think this card might have a chance in Constructed, honestly, if there's a really, really out there cave deck as a sideboard card as mono red or something like that. But yeah, the card's really good. 5/5 lifelink is absolutely monstrous. Cost reduction's great. Caves are great. Moving on. hiding my shame and embarrassment. Grasping Shadows. This is a 4-mana uncommon.
For your arrest, you're going to jail.
Enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains Death Touch and lifelink till end of turn. Put a dread counter on this card. Then if there are 3 or more dread counters on it, transform it into the Shadow's Lair. So it's a land, taps for black. It's also a cave, which is very important to note. And 1 black, tap this, remove a counter from this, draw a card, and lose a life. This card's kind of gas, honestly, in limited. So, like, you play it, you tap it with your 3/3, gain some life, put a counter on it, kind of keep going. This allows you to trade up, which is kind of cool. Without the lifelink, it's heinously unplayable. But with Death Touch and lifelink together, allowing you to both always be able to attack, as well as gain life to kind of like buffer you for playing this 4-mana enchantment, and then gain life also. That's kind of gas. This card's cool. Not probably like a hugely high picker like that, but I think this card's pretty good. Pretty good draft card for sure. Constructed, obviously not, but pretty fun draft card. Turns into a land, draw some cards. I like it. Card's cool. Greedy Freebooter. This is a common 1/1 for 1. It's a pirate. When it dies, scry 1 and make a treasure. That's pretty good, right? Pretty comparable to Shambling Ghast. They can't kill anything, but the scry 1's pretty good. So some sort of like sacrifice deck. It's cool. Cool little cog for sure. I think it plays well. Pretty good in draft and constructed, so it's kind of cool. Join the Dead. This is probably the best common in black. Basically, it's murder. We have black, 1 instant. -5/-5. Descend 4, -10/-10. It's just murder, folks. Just obviously a very, very good draft card. Probably will end up being the best black common. Obviously, I guess we'll Bombin Common here. Because it actually is a common. So, we'll Bombin Common here. But yeah, card's obviously very, very good. It's effectively just murder for the most part. So, yeah. Moving on to malicious Eclipse. Black, 1 sorcery. Infest, and then exiles your opponent's creatures. This is a power creep version of how we usually see this card. Cry the Carnarium, which would exile your own creatures, which is kind of cool. So it's important that this only exiles your opponent's creatures. Therefore, if you're playing your own sort of like Bloodghast recursion creatures, that's huge. Because they get to come back too. Also puts cards in your graveyard for the Descend cards as well. So, card's just good. Good sideboard card, good limited card. Nothing too crazy here. Matic Drought. Drought.
You're saying...
Manifer artifact. When it ETBs or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card with life. This card's great, honestly. Is this draft? Wow. All right. So, cantrip ETB, sack it, draw cards. Obviously plays great with the Deadly Dispute, as well as other ways to sacrifice it. Sort of like Acre Wellspring 2.0. Obviously losing life kind of sucks, but Acre Wellspring's a pretty good card. So, constructed, this card might have a chance. Probably not, but Wellspring has seen playing constructed, so it's possible. But yeah, good limited card for sure if you're playing like the artifact-y, sacrifice-y deck. Preacher of the Schism. We got our sleeper card, folks. Preacher's a rare 3-mana 2/4 vampire cleric. It has Death Touch. So well sized, doesn't let it cut down. Whenever it attacks the player with the most life or tie for the most life, make a vampire with lifelink. Pretty good. Whenever it attacks the player while you have the most life, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So this card's pretty sweet, right? If you're ahead, this thing attacks, you draw a card. If you're behind when this attacks, you get a vampire lifelink to block, which is pretty good also. If you're tied, you get both. That's cool, I guess, too. But yeah, kind of a cool card. Well statted, pretty easy to cast, good body. If you only gain 1 or 2 life off of it, it's pretty sweet. I mean, 1 or 2 cards off. If you get a card off or a token off, it's pretty good. Nothing crazy. Just a good, solid little card that has a chance to get constructed. Those are really not vampire stuff, I don't think, for like tribal things, really. But just a good card. Good, solid card. Great limited card, obviously. But I think it has a chance to get constructed also. Hence why it's our sleeper card. Being immune to cut down is the most important thing for sure. And 2/4 Death Touch is also pretty good because it just attacks into everything. And lots of things can't block it. So, pretty sweet. Primordial Gnar. 5 mana for a 5/2. When it dies, discover 3. Now, once again, discover is like Cascade. Few key differences. It counts the number, not the mana value of the card that's doing it. So we get to discover 3. So basically, cascade for 3. And you can put the card in your hand if you want to, as opposed to casting it. So if it's a conditional card, you can just take it. So honestly, not bad. Like, you just play it, block a big thing with it, and then draw a card that goes to play. Discover 3 is probably on par with drawing a card, maybe a little bit better. You only ever get a small thing, but it's always a spell. You get to cast it for free, which is kind of nice too. That being said, it's probably just filler, honestly. It's just too small, I think, to really matter. It's a good defensive card. Not a very good offensive card, but you can trade well on defense with it, but mostly just kind of a fillery limited card. Queen's Bay Paladin, 5 mana for a 5/4 rare vampire knight. When it ETBs or attacks, return with 1 vampire card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, which means if it dies, it gets exiled. You lose life equal to the mana value. So the cool thing here is that Galta and Maverin is still in standard, which is a 12/12 vampire for 7 mana, I think. So you could use this to get back. You lose 7 life. It's a huge reanimation. That's the biggest thing you can do. But just like valuing up and getting a 3-drop or a 4-drop's fine too. That being said, 5 mana for a 5/4, this probably isn't good enough once you're getting a lot of life also. But yeah, I think mostly not good enough. Maybe as a 4 mana 4/4 could have gotten there. But I think that overall, kind of fun, but don't think it really quite gets there. Still, good, obviously insane draft card. Has a chance to construct it, but... Rampaging Spiketail. This is our common land cycler in black. 6 mana for a 5/6. Whenever it ETBs, target you control gets +2/+0 and gains indestructible in a turn. That's pretty good, honestly. So he gets a Forster, pretty powerful attack. Play a pretty good blocker. It's a land cycler. Costing 6 is so much better than 7. The blue one seems kind of but pretty good, honestly. Just, big colorful dinosaur and pretty good effect. Land cycling, pretty good. Good draft card. Ray of Ruin, cool art. 5 mana for a sorcery. Exile target creature, vehicle, or non-basic land. Woo! Let's kill some lands, folks. Scry 1. This is a common. So this is your generic common 5 mana bad removal spell. Obviously, you'll play it if you need a kill spell, but you don't want to play it usually. But yeah, that's basically it. Nothing really too crazy there. Screaming Phantom. 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer. Whenever it attacks, mill a card. I think if it EDB'd and milled like 2 or 3, it'd be a lot better. 2/2 flyer over 3 is just not really on par with modern day limited. Is it okay? Sure. Is it great? No. Is it a great enabler? No. Mostly filler and limited. Skullcap Snail. 2 mana for a 1/1. When it ETBs, an opponent exiles a card from their hand. This is a Ravenous Rat variant. Pretty good, actually. We saw Ravenous Rats in New Capenna, was pretty good there. And there are various, sack creature to gain value effects in this set, making this card a pretty good draft card. Constructed has moved pretty far past Ravenous Rats, I think. But for limited, this card seems totally reasonable. Pretty cool card. It's also just a freaking snail that lives in a skull. Aww. It's pretty cool. Soul Coil Viper. We have a uncommon 2/3 for 3. It's a snake. Pay a black and sack this to return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, only as a sorcery. So, was it Doom Necromancer? Eat your heart out. Who remembers Doom Necromancer? That was a rare back in my day, back in Onslaught, and this is a much better version of that card. Finality counter is obviously, relevant, not that relevant. This card's pretty good, honestly. This card allows for a turn 4 reanimation in standard, which is not usually a thing. Usually it's turn 5 reanimation. And the body is decently sized enough to hopefully survive. It'll be a lot better as a 2/4 to dodge cut down, obviously, but kind of a cool card, honestly. I think this card's totally reasonable. Good limited card with the land cyclers, possibly a constructed card with like tracks and stuff like that too. This Viper's really got legs. Souls of a Lost is next. 2 mana for a Tarmogoyf style star +1. The big problem here is, as additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card or sack a permanent. That's a huge cost. Monumental cost. Unless you're discarding for value or sacrificing for value. It has Fathomless Descent. Its power is equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. And its top is equal to that plus number +1. So, If I have 5 permanent cards in my graveyard, it's a 5/6. So it's Tarmogoyf-esque, but it's a counter, not a type checker. So it can get to be like a 10/10 or whatever, 10/11. That being said, it is really hard to cast. Having to discard or sacrifice when you cast this card is a huge downside. Without that, this card's great. I think it's just a super solid creature. With that, it's pretty bad. So unless you're discarding like, a Basking Rootwalla or a Fiery Temper or an Atraxa or something like that, it's kind of sketchy. But if you are, it's a pretty good way to have a threat in your deck. It's also Enabler, which is kind of cool. But yeah, pretty rough. And there was also like a lot of random graveyard hate in Standard between Lord Skitter and Graveyard Trespasser. Like Unlicensed Hearse, there's a lot of cards that hate graveyards and two. So these Descend cards might need to wait a little bit instructive for those cards to go away. But yeah. And then limited, this card's good, right? Just make it a 5/5, sack a token, whatever. You can definitely do that for sure. Stalactite Stalker. We got a Goblin, folks. 1 mana for a 1/1 Menace Goblin Rogue rare. Beginning for end step. If you descended this turn, you put a counter on it, which is pretty good. And then 3 mana to sacrifice this. A creature gets -X on a turn, where X is the power. So obviously, Descend cards are busted in fetch lands formats because it's just on all the time, similar to Revolt. So in a fetch land format, this is basically just a 2/2 for 1. That'll get bigger every turn. That being said, that's not really that good. It's just like fine. Like that's also the Fury Solitude format. So like, So this card's like fine. Nothing crazy. Obviously, if you're playing like an Anvil deck or something like that, it doesn't even work actually. It's tokens. Yeah, I think it's just fine. Just, it's got a lot of words on it, but mostly it's just a clunky 1/1 with Menace. Not that exciting. Good draft card, obviously, but Starving Revenant. 4 mana for a 4/4 Spirit Horror. It's a rare. When it ETBs, Surveil 2. Then for each card you put on top of your library, you draw a card and lose 3 life. So basically, it's a modal spell of like pay 6, draw 2, play 3 and draw 1, or just bin 2 cards, which is like pretty good, honestly. It has Descend 8 whenever you draw a card. If there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses 1 and you gain 1. So this card is cool. This card's a freaking joke compared to Sheoldred. So constructed, not gonna happen. Limited card's definitely good, but yeah, it's a rough one. Singing Cave Crawler. We've got a uncommon 3 mana 1/3 with Death Touch. Descend 4. Whenever it attacks, if there are 4 more cards in your graveyard, you draw a card, lose 1 life. This is a great limited card. Woo! This card's awesome. 1/3 Death Touch for 3 is already a good limited card. And then if you're Descended, you can draw cards off this thing too. Man, this card's bonkers. Great limited card. Very, very good. Very, very good. Synapse Necromage. We have a uncommon 3/1 for 3. It's a fungus wizard. When it dies, make 2 black fungus tokens that can't block. Just a good card. I don't know what that's being a wizard, but yeah. Good limited card for sure. Art's horrifying. Moving on to Tarans Journal, and this is a really suspect one, but we're gonna best in show here. I didn't really love any of the black cards, honestly. There's a lot of trappy cards in black, and this card's pretty sweet. It's a 2 mana artifact. It's legendary. You tap it, sacrifice an artifact or creature, and draw a card, which is pretty good, honestly. And then we have 2 mana to discard your hand, transform this, which is not nearly as important as the just draw card engine is. Turns into a tomb, which is a cave, and you may cast creature cards from your graveyard, which is kind of cool. So this is like a, more of a late game kind of thing. But 2 mana artifact, just like sack a thing, draw a card, sack a thing, draw a card every turn, is pretty sweet. Not playing 4 of this card, obviously, but it's a pretty cool one. Again, this is mostly because most of the black cards just look really bad to me. So this art isn't like a game breaker and like that, but certainly a reasonable card. It's a sorcery, but whatever, you just sack a blood, draw a card. Sack a blood, draw a card. Sack a 1, draw a card. Whatever it might be. So plays well with Anvil also. Just a good, fine, solid card. We'll see some play. Not the most exciting card of all time, but realistically, I think black is pretty mediocre overall for constructed. Terror is next. For a sorcery, it has Fathomless Descent. All creatures get -X, X number of permanent cards in your graveyard. This is a really weird card because decks don't want to play Mutilate, don't want to play permanents, obviously, and it's very hard to size this up to a reasonable size. I think this card's pretty damn bad. I struggle to imagine a deck that want to play this card over some other more reliable sweeper. Just seems really, really, really bad. And limited, sure. Even then, you got to like work with it to make it kind of do stuff. But yeah, overall, fine limited card, I guess. But Tithing Blade, 2-mana common artifact, ETB, opponent's acts creature, and you can craft with creature. So this is our first craft with creature card. Pay 4, exile this, an exile creature card from play or your graveyard. Turn it over into the consuming. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm not gonna try. It's an artifact that drains for 1 each turn. This card is probably a really good sideboard card in limited. Edict effects are often hit or miss in limited because your opponent might have some random token in play and it's just awful. When they are good, they're really good. When they're bad, they're really bad. However, if this card's really good, and then later on you can just pop it over into a win condition, that's pretty awesome, actually. So I think this card in limited will work sometimes. Might be more of a sideboard card, but it's kind of sweet. Constructed is not a thing, but could be an okay limited card. Visage of Dread, 2 mana for an artifact. In our ETBs, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact or creature card from it. The player discards that card. It's 2 mana Coercion. Again, we see the spell on an artifact here, so it's a permanent for always various effects. And this thing can craft with 2 creatures. So you exile 2 creatures from your graveyard or from play. Pay 4 and exile this, 6 and exile this, and you get the Dread Oasaur, which is going to be a 5/4 menace dinosaur skeleton horror. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may mill 2 cards. Yeah, I mean, this card seems okay. The problem is that like if you miss him a discard, it's heinous. But there are a lot of artifacts and creatures. Also, a lot of his spells in this set are artifacts too. This card should hit most of the time. Seems pretty good actually. Just like 2 mana, get a card from your hand, and then way late in the game when you're flooded, you just like sink 6 mana into this, flip it over, get a good sized creature. Pretty good common. Pretty good draft card. Vito's Inquisitor. We have another common here. 4 mana for a 3/3. Pay a black, sack creature or artifact, put a counter on this, gains menace on a turn. Archetype filler. Not very exciting. If you're a very stock heavy deck, it's like okay, but mostly a middling draft card. That's it for black, folks. We got Tarans Journal as our best in show. Preacher of a Schism as our sleeper card. Bloodletter of Alcatraz here is our trap card. And then not gargantuan leech. This is an uncommon. I just couldn't read it. We have Join the Dead as our Bombin Common. So that's black. Like, comment, subscribe. Red's coming up. Let's rock and roll.